The sky was that pale, endless blue you only get in Kansas after a week of rain. I was 16, bored, and desperate for something to break up the summer. So when my friend Marcus suggested we go looking for old houses out in the country, I said yes right away. We took random turns, just letting the gravel roads lead us. Every so often, Marcus would slow down and point out a crumbling barn or a house half swallowed by weeds. I kept my feet on the dash, window cracked, the wind mixing with the smell of old upholstery and cut grass. After about an hour, Marcus squinted ahead and said he saw something in the trees. I leaned forward, trying to spot it. At first, it looked like just another pile of junk, but as we got closer, I realized it was a small shed, gray and slumped, barely visible through the brush. Not far from the shed was a house, small, with peeling paint and a roof that sagged in the middle. It looked like no one had touched it in years. Marcus grinned and turned down the dirt driveway, tires crunching over loose gravel. We didn't get far. Right in the middle of the driveway, something was sprawled across the dirt. At first, I thought it was just a pile of leaves, but as we got closer, I realized it was half a deer. Its ribs stuck out, fur matted with old blood, the rest of it just gone. Marcus slowed the truck, and we both just stared. I tried to joke that maybe a mountain lion had gotten it, but my voice sounded thin. Out here, you saw roadkill sometimes, but not like this. Not blocking the way, not so fresh. We got out anyway. My shoes sank into the grass and the smell hit me. Sweet rot, sharp and heavy. That's when I saw the rest. It wasn't just one deer. There were bodies everywhere, half eaten, half picked clean. Maybe 20, maybe more, scattered all around the yard. I couldn't move for a second. The flies were everywhere, buzzing so loud it sounded like static. Marcus just stared, his mouth hanging open. I tried to count the bodies, but I lost track. Some of them were just bones. Marcus said he wanted to check out the house. I told him I'd wait outside. I didn't want to go any closer. I just kept looking at the grass, at the way the bones gleamed in the sun. He disappeared inside, the door creaking behind him. I wandered a little, careful where I stepped. The grass was thick with bones, hundreds maybe. Deer, sure, but also smaller ones, too small for deer. I knelt down and picked up a skull the size of my palm. Possum? Skunk? I didn't want to know. I started to feel watched, like something was waiting just out of sight, behind the dirty windows or in the trees. I dropped the skull and wiped my hands on my jeans, heart thumping. I wanted Marcus to hurry up. I wanted to leave. I hurried back to the truck and slammed the door behind me, locking it out of habit. The cab felt safer, but not by much. I kept my eyes on the house, waiting for Marcus. The minutes dragged. I watched the flies swirl in the sunlight, heard the wind rattle the truck's antenna. I kept thinking I saw something move in the shadows by the house, but every time I blinked, it was gone. Suddenly, the front door banged open. Marcus came flying out, nearly tripping over the porch steps. His face was pale, and he was breathing hard, eyes wide with something I'd never seen before, real fear. He yanked open the truck door and jumped in, fumbling with the keys. I asked what happened, but he just shook his head, hands shaking so bad he could barely start the engine. We tore out of there, gravel spraying behind us. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see if something was watching from the windows or moving in the grass. We didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, Marcus whispered that there were dead animals everywhere inside. Not just deer, raccoons, possums, birds. Some were just piles of fur and bones, like something had dragged them in and left them to rot. He said the smell was so bad he almost threw up. There were stains on the floor, old and new, and something had scratched deep grooves into the wood near the back door. He didn't see anyone, but he felt like he was being watched the whole time. We tried to come up with explanations. Maybe someone was hunting illegally, using the house to butcher animals. But why so many? And why all the small ones? Skunks, possums, things nobody would bother with? None of it made sense. The sun was almost down by the time we made it back to the highway. The fields looked normal again, just endless grass and sky, nothing strange. But the smell of rot clung to my clothes, and I kept thinking about all those bones. We never went looking for old houses again. Sometimes when I drive past empty fields, I wonder if that place is still there, hidden behind the trees, the grass hiding more bones. I don't think I ever want to find out. Sometimes I dream about that yard, about the bones, the silent house, and the feeling that something was watching us from the dark. I wake up with the taste of old air in my mouth, and for a few seconds, I wonder if I ever really left.
The bus spat me out at the edge of a mountain road somewhere in northern Georgia. No, not the state. The country. The air was sharp, almost metallic, and the sky pressed down, gray and heavy. My backpack felt like it was full of bricks. I'd been traveling for nearly 2 days and everything ached. I followed the directions scribbled on a scrap of paper. Up the dirt path, past the twisted apple trees, through the silence. No cars, no voices, just the crunch of gravel and my own breath fogging in the chill. The house came into view, if you could call it a house. From a distance, it looked abandoned. The roof sagged, weeds choked the garden, and the windows were dark, reflecting only the gray sky. There was a rusty gate, half off its hinges. I pushed it open, metal scraping against stone. That's when I saw him. My host, or at least the man who answered to the name Givy. He shuffled out from behind the house, short and broad, with a thick black beard and a smile that seemed too wide. His eyes were bloodshot, and I caught a whiff of something sharp. Booze, maybe.
Ah, you are. Michael, yes. Welcome, welcome. Please come inside. Eat, rest.
His English was rough, but he tried. I followed him inside, glancing around for the family I'd seen in the listing photos, smiling kids, a woman in a red scarf, an old man pouring wine. But the house was empty, except for us. I tried to keep my voice casual. So is your family around?
Ah, they are away now. Later, maybe. You rest. I cook.
He showed me the house, or what was left of it. The kitchen was full of empty bottles. The bathroom door hung crooked, and the smell of mold clung to everything. I tried not to stare at the pile of broken toys in the corner. Dinner was a plate of potatoes and bread washed down with something sharp that burned all the way down. I barely tasted it. I hadn't slept in over a day, and my head felt full of static.
You sleep upstairs. Room is ready. Tomorrow, we work.
The room was small, just a sagging bed and a cracked window. I dropped my bag and lay down, boots and all. My eyes closed before I could even think about what I'd gotten myself into. Somewhere in the night, I woke up to a sound, metal scraping across wood, slow and heavy like someone dragging a trunk across the floor. I lay still, heart thumping, listening. Then silence. I told myself it was nothing, just the old house settling, or maybe an animal in the walls. I drifted back into a dreamless sleep. Sunlight woke me. Givy was already in the kitchen, hunched over a mug, eyes red and distant. He barely looked at me.
You fix window, yes? Door 2. I go. Get things in village. Back soon.
He didn't meet my eyes. He grabbed his coat and disappeared out the door, footsteps crunching down the path. The house felt even emptier. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the silence. No radio, no distant voices, just the hum of the old fridge and the wind rattling a loose pane. I wandered the house, checking the doors and windows. The place felt wrong, like it had been empty for years. Newspapers from the 80s scattered on the floor, a shattered mirror in the hallway. The garden outside was just dead grass and tangled vines. I dug out the printout of the farm listing, comparing the photos to what I saw. The walls in the pictures were painted blue, not this sickly yellow. The backyard was full of flowers, not weeds. And the man in the photos wasn't Givey. My skin prickled. Something was off. A lot was off. I started packing my bag, hands shaking. Through the cracked window, I spotted 3 men trudging up the hill toward the house. I didn't recognize any of them. There were no other paths out. My heart hammered in my chest. I grabbed my bag and slipped out the back, boots sinking into the mud. I ducked behind the barn, heart pounding, and scrambled into the trees. I crouched behind a tangle of bushes, holding my breath. I could hear them inside the house, doors slamming, voices shouting in a language I didn't understand. They were looking for me. I waited, barely breathing. The forest pressed in on all sides, every twig and leaf suddenly too loud. I tried not to move, not even to scratch the sweat crawling down my back. The men didn't give up. I heard them moving through the house, then outside, boots crunching, voices getting closer, then fading again. I counted to 100, twice. When the forest finally went quiet, I crept back toward the house, keeping low. The men were gone. I didn't stop to check the rooms, I just bolted down the path, away from the mountain, away from that house. I ran until my lungs burned, until the trees thinned out and the path turned to gravel. There was nothing but silence behind me. I reached the paved road and started walking, thumb out, not even caring which way. I just needed to get away. Hours passed. My legs felt like rubber. Finally, a battered old car pulled up. For a second, my stomach dropped. What if it was them? But it was a Russian family, all smiles and confusion. They didn't speak English, but they waved me in. I climbed in and slumped against the window, watching the trees blur past. The family chatted, offered me bread, pointed at the mountains, and laughed. I tried to smile, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. They dropped me off in the next town. I found a hostel, paid in crumpled bills, and locked the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the house, the empty garden, the men on the hill. A few days later, I checked the work exchange site. The farm listing was gone, just vanished. No trace, no reviews, nothing. I never heard from Givey again. I've tried to make sense of it, but I can't. Maybe they just wanted to drink and talk, or maybe they wanted something else. All I know is I trusted my gut that day, and sometimes that's the only thing that gets you home.
The city felt hollow at 3 a.m. Most nights I'd be stacking plates or wiping down tables, but with restaurants shuttered, I took whatever work I could find. That's how I ended up on a cracked sidewalk, clutching a folder, waiting for a ride to a medical office that needed some late-night filing. It was the safest gig I'd been offered since the pandemic started. They let me come in after hours, once the cleaning crew left. No one to breathe on me, no crowded break rooms. I just had to get there and back without catching a virus. I didn't want to risk the bus, not with the way people packed in. So I splurged on a rideshare. It wasn't all that expensive here, and honestly, I just wanted to feel safe. But I was so tired. My shift at the diner had ended hours ago, and my body was begging for sleep. A sedan pulled up, headlights cutting through the mist. The window rolled down and a voice called out, "Taxi?" I'd been wandering up and down the block, squinting at every car, and in my exhaustion, I just nodded and got in. The driver looked pretty normal. Young, clean-shaven, brown hair, a zip-up sweatshirt. He reminded me a little of my cousin. Jazz played softly on the radio. Nothing about him set off any alarms. I just wanted to close my eyes for a second. The ride felt longer than I expected, but I didn't know the area well. I tried to distract myself with my old flip phone, but the battery was dying. I shut it off to save power, hoping I'd have enough juice to call a ride home later. My eyelids got heavy. The hum of the engine, the soft music, the warmth of the car, it all blurred together. I drifted off. Just for a minute, I thought. When I woke up, the driver was shaking my leg gently, saying, "Miss, hey, we're here." I mumbled thanks, grabbed my folder, and stumbled out into the night. The car's taillights vanished as I made my way to the building. The place didn't look right. I'd seen a street view of the office, a strip mall, bright signs, glass doors. This was not that. The windows were blacked out, some cracked. The entrance was half lit, the rest swallowed by shadow. I told myself maybe they were renovating. I stepped inside, shoes crunching on loose concrete. The lobby was a skeleton, no furniture, just a few battered signs and some construction tape. I followed a paper sign that said stairs. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Broken windows, exposed wires, the smell of dust and old rain. Every step echoed. I kept thinking, this can't be right. No medical office would look like this, not even after hours. I dug out my phone, flipped it open, and tried to check the address. No bars. I wandered around, holding the phone up, hoping for a single bar of service. Nothing. I found my old text with the address. At least I hadn't messed that up. I figured maybe I could catch the driver before he left, ask him to take me to the right spot, since this was his mistake, not mine. But my phone wouldn't load the app. I started feeling that tight, crawling panic in my stomach. Then I heard it, a rustling, down on the lower level. Not the wind, not a rat, something heavier. I froze, heart pounding. I was on the top floor, and the only stairwell I knew led right past the noise. I tried to send a group text, my address a plea to call 911, but the message just sat there, spinning, never sending. I started looking for another way down, or maybe a window I could climb out of if I had to. I found a door marked stairs, but when I opened it, the stairs were gone. A straight drop to the first floor, nothing but broken boards and empty air. My options were shrinking fast. That's when the footsteps started, slow, heavy, coming up the main stairs. I pressed myself behind a concrete beam, barely breathing. Whoever was down there was coming up. The person who appeared at the top of the stairs, it was the driver. He looked calm, almost bored, but his breathing was heavy. He stood right in front of the only way down. In that moment, something in me just snapped awake. There was no way he could have known I was in the wrong place. No way he'd come back unless he meant to. My stomach turned to ice. I didn't think. I just ran. I dove for the broken stairwell, letting myself fall. The world spun, concrete and dust slamming into me. Everything hurt, but I got up, staggering toward the exit. I fumbled through the dark, hands scraping against cold metal and splintered wood. I didn't dare use my phone's light. I just kept moving, hoping for a door, anything that would let me out. Suddenly, the door in front of me flew open. A blinding flashlight beam hit my eyes. I staggered back, half blind, panic rising.
All right, this is the police. Get on your knees, hands in the air. Hey, I said on the ground. Right now. Hands out where I can see them.
I dropped to my knees, hands out, not sure if I was about to get arrested or rescued. The light finally shifted off my face, and I saw the officer. Real uniform, real badge. Relief and humiliation flooded through me at the same time.
Can you tell me your name? Do you have any knives or needles on you? Would you rather talk in here or outside?
I tried to answer, but my mouth wouldn't work. Words tumbled out, nothing made sense. He guided me outside, away from the building, and sat me on the edge of the squad car's back seat. Sitting there, breathing in the cold air, I finally started to come back to myself. The officer stood across from me, repeating his questions, softer this time.
Nobody called us. I was patrolling and saw a car idling out front. This building's condemned. Nobody's supposed to be in there. When they are, it's never for anything good.
He started to give me a lecture about drugs and prostitution, but I was stuck on something else. The car. I spilled out the whole rideshare story, how I'd gotten in, how the driver had come back for me. He looked around, but the car was gone. He guessed the driver had taken off while we were inside. I tried to remember any details, make, model, plates, but all I had was a blur of brown hair and a sweatshirt. The officer said maybe my app could help. We drove down the block until I got a bar of service. I opened the ride app. 4 missed messages, all saying the driver never found me and had to cancel. That's when it hit me. The driver who picked me up wasn't my ride. My real driver had never even seen me. I'd gotten into a stranger's car, and he'd taken me to a place I never should have been.
We'll keep an eye out for him. If you remember anything else, anything at all, call us. Try to get some rest tonight.
I never did find out who that driver was or what he wanted. I don't take ride shares anymore, and every time I see a car idling in the dark, I check the plates at least 3 times, just in case. The rain was coming down in a slow, steady drizzle, painting the old Willow Ridge sign in streaks of gray. Fog curled around the edges of the parking lot, swallowing up the swings and the rusted merry-go-round. I remember thinking, even back then, that the place looked like it was holding its breath. There were 5 of us that night. Me, my best friend Yasmin, Brian, Marcus, and Lena. We were all 15, bored out of our skulls, and convinced nothing bad ever really happened in our town. The main gate was padlocked, but we boosted each other over, boots scraping metal, giggles echoing too loud in the mist. We fanned out, flashlights bobbing over the playground. The fog made everything feel smaller, closer. Yasmin found a faded plastic tricycle half buried in weeds. Marcus tried the slide, but it groaned under his weight and he slipped off, cursing under his breath. It all felt harmless, almost like we were just kids again. We gathered at the daycare entrance, a battered wooden door hanging off one hinge. As I pushed it open, glass shards crunched under my sneakers. The air inside was thick with dust and something else, old sweat maybe, or mold. I remember the way the light from our flashlights caught on motes drifting through the gloom. The daycare section still had traces of its past. Legos scattered across the floor, a cracked plastic bin of crayons in the corner, dolls with their faces torn or faded. Lena shined her light on a mural of stick figure kids holding hands, the paint peeling in long strips. We all got quieter as we moved deeper inside. The laughter faded, replaced by the crunch of dirt and glass underfoot. Every sound seemed to echo. I picked up the crayon bin, turning it over in my hands, trying to ignore the way the shadows pressed in around us. That's when we heard it, a loud crash from behind the metal door at the far end of the room. We all froze. The door led to the old psych ward, the part of the building everyone said was haunted. Brian grinned at us, but I could see his hands shaking a little. Brian suggested we check it out. Nobody wanted to be the one to say no, so we all lined up at the door. I remember thinking, this is how kids in movies get killed. But peer pressure's a hell of a thing. The metal door was rusted to the floor. It took all of us pushing and pulling, the hinges wailing, until it finally gave way. The smell hit us right away. Metallic, sour, and something else. Something rotten. We stepped into the psych ward. The hallway was tight, lined with heavy metal doors, some hanging open. The air felt thicker here, every breath sticky and stale. My flashlight shook in my hand, bouncing shadows off the walls. Brian shined his flashlight into one of the rooms and jerked back. He said he thought he saw someone, but when he stepped inside there was nothing, just a mattress, some old graffiti, and a pile of broken glass. I didn't believe him, not then. I thought he was just messing with us. We kept going, flashlights darting from door to door. The deeper we went, the more I felt like the walls were pressing in. Marcus whispered for us to stop, and we all listened. That's when we heard it. Footsteps. Faint, but definitely ahead of us. Brian started moving toward the sound. I wanted to grab his arm, but I didn't. The footsteps kept going, echoing down the hall, and I swear I felt eyes on the back of my neck. We turned into a room on the right, and the smell hit us like a wall. Rotting meat, sharp and sweet and sick. In the middle of the floor was a deer, its insides spilled out, blood soaked into the concrete. Lena gagged, doubled over, and threw up right there. Then, from somewhere in the room, we heard whispering. It was soft, almost like the sound of wind through broken glass, but it was words, just out of reach. My heart hammered in my chest. Brian's flashlight swept to the far corner. There, standing with his head bowed, was a man. Short hair, bright green t-shirt stained dark, torn beige pants. No socks. His feet looked raw, almost chewed. He twitched, mumbling to himself, not looking up. We stared, frozen. After what felt like forever, the man jerked his head up. His grin was too wide, teeth white in the dark. He asked, in a voice that rose and fell like a broken record, if we were there for the feast. That broke the spell. We bolted, stumbling over each other, slipping on the wet concrete as we tore back into the hallway. I could hear the man's mumbling behind us getting louder. We reached the metal door and tried to slam it shut, but it was heavy, rusted, barely moving. 3 of us had to pull with everything we had. Just before it closed, I looked back and saw the man's silhouette in the hallway, his teeth still shining in the dark. We collapsed on the other side, hearts racing, gasping for air. Nobody spoke. We just stared at each other, waiting for someone to say it was all a joke. Then, a light tapping started on the other side of the door. Not banging, just gentle, patient. That was enough. We sprinted out of the building, through the rain, not stopping until we reached the road. We didn't talk much on the way home. Everyone was soaked, shivering, and too scared to look back. The rain felt colder now, the fog thicker. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see that green shirt coming after us. That night I lay awake, replaying every second. The whispering, the deer, the man's voice. I wondered if we'd imagined it all, if maybe the fear had gotten to us. But the smell of rot clung to my clothes, and I knew it was real. A year later, the police did a sweep of Willow Ridge. They found a man living in the psych ward. He'd once been a patient there, escaped from the hospital he was transferred to. He'd survived by eating whatever he could catch in the woods. They said he was sick, physically, mentally. There were rumors he'd hurt someone out in the forest, but nobody ever proved anything. The town just wanted to forget about it, but I never did. So, if you ever get the urge to poke around somewhere you shouldn't, remember Willow Ridge. Some places are empty for a reason, and if you hear someone whispering in the dark, don't answer. Just leave.